Okay, let's be very honest. let's say we have 4 different departments in the organization. Let's say there's a sales department, there is a HR department, there is operations, right, and there is purchase team, right. So from each function point of view, if you look at every function is there for a reason. Let's say you are an HR manager. So what is your goal? Your goal is to look at the productivity of the employees, retention of the employees, right? But why is it important? Because if you have average resources in the company, your company's performance will be average.
True.
Right? If you are not able to retain the employees, it will naturally affect the company's results. So if you look at it, let's say another example, let's say finance. If you are in a sales department, let us take sales example. So as a sales function, as a manager, what is your role? Your role is to convert the deals into real business outcome, right? So if you are losing more deals than winning, then obviously your organization will not perform better.
Of course.
Right? So if you look at it, numbers have the impact, whether it is the sales department, HR department, operations, or even purchase. So in purchase, what you do? Your task is to negotiate with the suppliers, make sure that you get a very reasonable rate. Right? So that is why each function has a direct or indirect contribution in the numbers that will eventually show up. That's why that's how you look at finance.
Understand. So of course, I mean, it's important. That's why it's there, and it's a backbone of any of the organization. Ultimately, it's all for money and profit, and that's where the sustainability comes from. So, how important is it for the organization to train people to understand finance? So many of the time, we kind of run a program called Finance for Non-Finance, right? So how important it is for the organization to run such kind of programs and train their employees to understand financial terms?
Okay. So if you look at career progression in a way, if you look at from the manager's point of view who are not from finance background, let's say somebody has done a MBA and they are heading purchase department, right? So what should they understand? Of course, they are very good at their own function, their expertise, their area of focus, right? But if you want to be promoted as a leader in the business, it is not just your core competence that will help. What helps is how you know that your actions will impact the business, what value you are creating. For a let's say procurement guy or purchase department head, his KRAs will be like what is the number of contracts where successful negotiations happen.
Right.
How cost of acquiring something has been lower or reasonable, right? That he should know, okay, how my actions are affecting the company in terms of better revenue, in terms of better cost, better profitability. Then if he understands that mechanism, I think there are better chances to get promoted rather than just being your functional expertise. Of course, that is also required, that at personal level you can admire, you can keep doing it, no doubt about that. But if you want to be a leader, I think that is extra advantage of having finance understanding.
So it's a kind of both ways. So it will help individuals to uplift their career with better understanding. At the same time, if organization invest in finance for non-finance program, they will have manpower or the managers who are more aligned to the business growth. Their inclination would be towards kind of understanding the financial flow, profit, and other things. Definitely. So
exactly. So, let's take another example. For a HR manager, if that HR person is concerned about quality of people, productivity, improvement in the day-to-day operations, then obviously that will help the organization in better productivity. How it will show in the balance sheet? It will show, okay, whatever task was required, instead of 2 days, it is now happening in 1 day. So obviously the performance will be better, the profitability will be better, and again, in turn, it will benefit them by increasing the overall payroll budget, right?
Of course.
So that's how it is a never-ending game. It's it's a cycle basically.
Yeah. So having that understanding of connection So any operation, whether it's
Yes.
sales or operations or the HR actually, how their day-to-day actions align with the finance and the bottom line, which is profit, it is important.
Correct.
So as a manager or as a leader, what are the most important or the core financial terms or financial aspects one should know actually?
Right. See, first of all, one should also observe that how my actions, my day-to-day actions are affecting the cash flow of the organization.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So if you are in procurement, let's say, you are spending money on behalf of the company.
Of course.
Right. So you should know how the cash flow is affected based on whatever contracts we have. Let's say you are in sales, you should know how the cash flow is getting generated. Just selling is not important. Collecting cash also is equally important. Right. So once you know the cash flow, you also know what actions, day-to-day actions, it will have an impact. Then you should know how the revenue is generated. What are the levers of profitability? Based on that, your organization actually can handle something, right?
Okay.
So unless you know these terms, the revenue, profitability, cash flow, I think it will be difficult for organization as a whole to proceed.
Right. So having at least basic understanding of how individuals' day-to-day efforts contribute to the ultimate cash flow in the organization. At the same time, departmental alignment with the overall functionality of the organization and the overall profitability of the organization would definitely be handy. So how would you define a good finance for non-finance program?
Okay. So if you look at the way finance is structured, it is all basics. It is all based on logic.
Okay.
Right? There's nothing like rocket science you can look at in finance, saying that, oh, this is very difficult to understand.
Okay.
It's nothing like that. The thing is, the facilitator has to be disciplined in the sense he should be able to connect day-to-day activities to the numbers.
Okay.
Right. So last few months, I was delivering this program for a MNC, who is a European MNC based out of Pune as well. So they had a 2 days program, and we had participants from all over India, not only from Pune. So majority of them were from sales. Okay. So what I covered in that session was one concept which was very much appreciated. The concept was, what is the difference between margin and markup? These are two different concepts.
Okay.
In sales finance, they're very, very, very important.
Right.
And when I explained them, all of them were silent for 2 seconds, and they were like, "Oh, we didn't know all this. All these years."
Never thought of.
And this will definitely have a day-to-day impact in our discussion with the customers.
Right.
Because when they negotiate pricing, they have to know all these concepts. These 2 concepts are very important if you are in sales. Otherwise, your margins will go for a toss, and your profitability, of course, will suffer because of that. Yeah. So it's very important to make sure that your salespeople know this.
Right.
So that's how there are a number of concepts that will help sales, HR, operations, procurement, everybody in the organization.
So kind of simplifying finance and connecting with their day-to-day activities is important. And I'm sure to that actually you can use many of the examples or maybe case studies or maybe the real life case study from the participants department. That would help.
So what I normally do is I take a very simple day-to-day examples with very understandable numbers, so that they can see on the screen, they can do it on their own, and they can appreciate, oh, this is how it is.
Okay.
This is not like download the balance sheet of a public company and you give a lecture on what is revenue, how it is recognized. That will be too much for them. That is not required.
Of course. Yeah.
So basic things, if you do it well, I think they will develop the curiosity to understand more, and that's the way to give it.
So kind of building step by step actually. So having the basic understanding of, and then trying to understand the balance sheet and then cash flow and other things actually.
Right.
Okay, good. So from your perspective, you have been CA for a long time. You already do many of the training programs, especially on finance for non-finance. So what are the common mistakes professionals do in the organization when they're kind of working in their careers? What are the common mistakes most of the professionals do in terms of financial understanding?
So one thing I observed is people read finance numbers in isolation.
Okay.
Trying to make sense of that number in their own way.
Okay.
It doesn't work like that.
Achha.
So what happens is, if you look at any number, for example, if you look at revenue, right? Revenue is your top line. So if you look at, you cannot make sense of it standalone. You have to compare that with what was there previous year.
Right.
Right. Then it will tell you a story. If you compare that number with the best in your industry, it will tell you a different story.
Of course.
Right. So every number, if you look at whether it is revenue, it is cash flow or profit, it has its own context. If you look that into a context, I think that will give you more meaning than just understanding that number.
Interesting perspective. Of course, I mean, every number is relational, is connected to somewhere, right? So whether it's like revenue coming from sales or past and previous, those things, really, definitely. Any other common mistake which you would like to highlight, which people do?
And what I have observed is many leaders, they are very much obsessive about their professional, capacity. In the sense, they are masters of their domain and they want to be excellent in that. No doubt. I mean, that should be there. That is a personal passion and it should be encouraged. I am not discouraging that. What I find is whenever they think of finance, they think in negative terms. I think maybe it is because they don't understand, or maybe because their previous experience with the finance managers or departments has been different, right? But if you think as a leader, being best in your field is of course important. But what is more important is how do you look at finance, or how do you look at business acumen or financial acumen as such? Because that will help you grow in organization ladders. Imagine there are two candidates competing for a promotion, right? Both are equally good in their own domain, right? Let's say two HR persons. And if as a business owner I have to promote someone, I will naturally choose someone who thinks better in numbers, who is participative in numbers discussion about profitability, sales, planning, budget, etc. Obviously, right? So I think that openness is required. If you have that, I think you will go places.
No, completely different perspective. So some people kind of restrict themselves, or they don't have to open up or become friendly with understanding numbers actually, or digging into more details or understanding it. So that isolation part or hesitance towards the finance and understanding that might come in between, right? So if you have kind of give a one single message or key learning for all the working professionals, what would it be? So one single message which can help many of the working professionals.
I think before you start your day in your company, in your office, wherever you work, just ask one thing to yourself: what am I going to do today, which will improve the numbers of my company in my own department? Let's say you are in sales. You have to ask yourself, what am I going to do today that will increase sales?
So ultimately,
if you are in procurement, right? You're in procurement. Your question should be, how do I save cost today? How do I optimize my supply chain?
True.
Right? If you are in HR, your question should be, how do I enable my team, enable my human capital with latest technology, with latest understanding, with finance, with the core competencies? How do I make them retain in the organization? I think if you are able to relate your action to the numbers that are going into the balance sheet or the profit and loss account, I think that will create a big impact in your career.
Yeah, and of course for the organization as well. If organization has employees who are thinking in that way, so like being busy and being productive, they are two different things. And if we could kind of measure that productivity in terms of numbers and finance and the revenue, actually, it's a great step for both for the individuals as well as the organizations. When we talk about finance for non-finance program, so how shorter it can be? Can it be like 4 hours or one day? How would squeeze it in terms of length actually. So how shorter it can be?
Okay, you know that learning is a slow process by default.
Yeah,
it's not about individual capacity. It's about the process itself, right? So I've seen many companies doing weekend programs for 2 to 3 weeks, right? And I've seen companies doing 2 days training, and I have seen after the 2 days training, they also have the hand holding session. No, it's not very large duration. Let's say half an hour or 1 hour, over the call, or the Zoom. So I think what's important is once you deliver the program, you handhold a few sessions after that, and until it becomes their routine. So once that becomes routine, the results will automatically improve, and the ROI will start, shooting after that.
Yeah. So what I understood is it can be one standalone session, or it can be a kind of learning journey where we can have capsule sessions along with the hand holding for the participants. Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
Great. But thank you so much for being a chartered accountant and also being a trainer, because it has different perspective. When a finance expert becomes a trainer and try to intervene and add value from his perspective and experience, it's a different game actually. So thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for joining today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
You're welcome, Ram. Yes, I'm so happy to be with you, and I'm happy that through your channel, we're able to reach the audience, the people who are curious about finance, especially from the non-finance background.